Fear. We've all experienced it. Everyone knows what it's like to be afraid. That sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach, to feel that icy chill run up your spine. Whether it be a ghostly apparition standing at the foot of your bed, or the news of a serial killer prowling the streets of your town, everyone is afraid of something. The fact is, there are terrifying things on this planet, some of them natural, while others remain unexplained and the things of folklore. A lot of us find that the things that scare us the most are also the most fascinating. They cause us not only to draw back in fear, but at the same time draw us in with an unwavering curiosity. From the paranormal and unexplained to true crime and the dangers of our very own planet. You can find all the latest episodes, links to social media and more on planetfearpodcast.com. And be sure to subscribe to Planet Fear on your favorite podcast platform as we discuss all the things humans fear the most on Planet Fear.
That little bird you saw at the beginning of this video, here's a story for you. Yesterday was Sunday. I woke up early, I waited for the sun to come up, had a lot of work to do, so I wanted to get the dogs walked early, so I jumped on my bike and off we went. We hadn't made it far into the trip, and I saw my 3 younger dogs kind of zeroed in on a spot up ahead in the trail, leaning their nose down and sniffing, jerking back, and I thought, oh, they found a snake or something. I pulled up on it, and I thought it was just looked like a little feather, but it wound up being a tiny, tiny baby bird. That's the bird you see in this video. Now, this bird is really small. I think it's a small species. I have no idea what bird it is. Some of you birders out there may know. And I ran the dogs off from it. I was afraid they were going to pick it up and eat it, and I rode on by, because when that happens, there's really not much you can do. I don't know the percentage of baby birds that fall out of nests and don't make it, or birds that are predated upon, or songbirds have a very slim chance of making it for a variety of reasons. But we rode our route, and it took about 30 minutes, and as I came back around, I thought, I'm going to go back by that spot. It was bugging me, and I thought, I'm going to go back by that spot. And if that bird is still there, because it was alive, I mean, I could tell it was alive. I was just going to leave it and let nature take its course. I thought, I'm going to pick it up and put it in my pocket. And if it's going to die, I'm going to let it die in a warm place in my house, wrapped up in a blanket or a T-shirt or something. So I stopped, and sure enough, there was the little bird on the ground. So I picked it up. I put it in the pocket of I had a little Carhartt hoodie on. I just dropped it in my pocket and kept riding. Well, we got home about 15 minutes later. My son had showed up. He and my wife were inside eating breakfast. I brought it in, and I pulled the bird out of my pocket. We all agreed there's no way this bird is going to survive. No way. So I told him my plan. I was just going to make sure that it died in a warm place instead of eaten by a cat or a dog or possum or a raccoon. So I just laid it in a T-shirt that I had thrown on the kitchen table, just a dirty T-shirt, and I laid it in there, and I thought, won't be long and it'll be dead. So I went outside and started working. I had some wood to cut and burn. You're seeing the wood burn here in the video. I came back in about 3 or 4 hours later. I looked at the bird, and it looked dead. It just wasn't moving. It was breathing, but it wasn't moving. I thought, it won't be long. Went back out, worked another couple hours, came back in, and my wife said, that bird has been chirping. She said, I looked it up on the internet, and I watered down some dog food, and I've been giving it some little pieces of dog food, and it's eating it. And I was like, wow. Kind of gave me a little hope. So later in the day, she got to feeling bad. She's got a chest cold, so I went to Walmart to get her some cough syrup. And while I was there, I got a little container of earthworms, brought it home, started cutting worms up and feeding it to this bird. And so I woke up this morning, and that bird was still alive and ready to eat. So I fed it again, and I thought, this bird needs to know daylight from dark. It needs to know, when it's daylight, it's time to feed. When it's dark, it's time to sleep. So I moved it outside, and that's the video you saw, and that's the last time I fed it. Now, here's the deal. I don't think this bird's going to make it. Its chances are extremely slim. But I got to give it a chance. I've got to give this bird a chance, and I don't know why, because this causes great amounts of work for me. You have to feed these things every 15 to 30 minutes, and it's hungry all the time. So it looks a bit poorly. It doesn't look very healthy, but it's eating, which is a good sign. So wouldn't it be cool if this bird made it to adulthood and flew away and lived in the woods around my house? That would be great. I don't expect it will, but as we go along, as I can video me feeding this bird, maybe we can just have a fun little progression of videos and you guys can see if this bird makes it or doesn't. So I thought it would be kind of a silly little thing to do because I'm not really a visual-based channel. So maybe this is something visual you guys can enjoy. Okay, that's enough yakking, but I thought it was a pretty decent story. And that's what this channel is about, stories. So let's get on with some Bigfoot stories. All right, here we go. Here's a story from the United Kingdom. I thought this was really good. The writer's name is Jay. And there's a couple of locations in here that have names I'm going to have trouble pronouncing. So let's see how I do. He gave me the phonetic spelling so that maybe I can get it right, but let's give it a whirl. I live in Clwyd County in North Wales, United Kingdom. I'm lucky to live in such a beautiful place surrounded by hills and woodland and an abundance of farms. We also have a lot of paved roads that lead to the more secluded areas. There was a spot on one of these narrow roads to nowhere that I and my friend Scott liked to go where we could chill out and enjoy some good banter and good chat. The spot we frequented was a lay-by about a third of the way up a damaged road with a steep incline and many hairpin turns as it snaked in an S up the side of a small mountain. The road was edged with 40 to 50 foot conifers, some ash and a few large oaks. Just off the road was a large piece of woodland. I say large because on our tiny island, 300 acres is large. On this stretch of road where there are no street lights, homes were few and far between and were inset back, so any lights from them didn't reach the road. It was dark as dark can be out there at night. One fall evening, Scott and I visited our usual spot with another friend we called Jack. We had been there maybe an hour, paying no mind to any of the surrounding area outside of the white 92 Nissan Mercury we had bundled into. We were laughing and having a good time, just enjoying each other's company. We hadn't even noticed how quiet the woods were. Suddenly, the inside of the car went silent as well. Everyone stopped talking, and Scott reached past the steering wheel to silence the radio. We were all sure we had heard something really close. A thud made me wind down the window on the passenger side to listen. That was when I realized I couldn't hear anything in the woods. We have an abundance of wildlife in this area, another reason I feel so lucky to live here. There are rabbits and squirrels, red fox, badger, deer, owls, and other birds of prey like kite and buzzards. At that moment, none of them were making a sound. Not even the insects could be heard. The only noise that broke the silence was the light rustling that was coming from a field that was situated up a steep embankment just to our left. It was coming from the other side of the field. We thought nothing of it until we heard another thud right next to my open window. A rock the size of a small melon had been thrown with great power and even more impressive accuracy towards us and landed a couple of feet short of the vehicle. It hit the ground so violently that I was sprayed with muddy rainwater right into my face. That was it. My window came up. Not that a window would have stood a chance against a rock that size, but it made me feel better knowing there was something between us and whatever had just hurled a 30-pound rock. We were considering our options, which in all honesty shouldn't have taken as long as it did. It was obvious that we should have just gotten the heck out of Dodge at that very moment, but for some reason we stalled on making our getaway. I looked up and out of the front window and then quickly hushed the others, telling them to look dead ahead. Our car was pointed as though we would drive straight up the hill to the next hairpin that was perhaps 50 feet away. The incline put the gravel level at about 10 to 12 feet higher than we were. We all saw it. Rather, we saw its eyes. Two big, round, amber-colored eyes hovered about 6 inches apart and what I estimated to be some 11 feet off the ground. This thing must have been immense in height and stature. I have always been a bit big for my boots, with a chip on my shoulder, a naturally brave person. It helps being 5'10" and 230 pounds of muscle from manual farm work and many hours in the gym. Jack isn't a small guy either, standing 6 feet tall and weighing around 215 pounds. But Scott was a mere 5'10" and 170 pounds. Being the brave boy I am, I got out of the car to get a better look. Scott and Jack were both yelling, "What the hell are you doing, Jay? Come back, get back in here, we need to leave." I gave them a soft hush and started to slowly make my way up towards the eye shine. Maybe I was hoping it was an owl perched on a low branch. As I got nearer, I realized this wasn't the case. I started to make out the creature's outline, and as I did, I stopped dead in my tracks. This thing was enormous. I was now maybe 30 feet away from it, and I could see that it had short but very thick legs, a long body, and thick, long arms. If it had a neck, it was half an inch long. Either that or its shoulder muscles were the size of a grown pig. It was easily 10 or 11 feet tall and 4 to 5 feet wide at the shoulders. I just stared as it made a low huff with every breath. That was when I turned from a big brave boy to a scared little girl and started walking backwards towards the car. I got back in and quietly said, "Drive." There was a pause before he reacted, but before Scott could turn the key in the ignition, we heard another thud. It was another rock, slightly smaller than the last, and it had been thrown and fell just shy of the vehicle. This time I screamed at Scott, "Just drive, Scott!" And he did. Never before has a 1000cc hatchback been driven so quickly. Fair play to Scott for the previous unseen skill. Thinking about it now, I don't think whatever this creature was wanted to hurt us, it just wanted us to go. Mission accomplished, and we got out, nor did we return to this spot for several weeks. I had another encounter with this thing, and it happened some months later in a different area of our surrounding woodlands, but only 2 miles or so from the spot I visited with Scott and Jack. I was hiking alone in the springtime near a derelict castle called Gurick Castle. I'm sure I got that wrong. It has been long abandoned, though many attempts have been made to restore the castle. It was in the middle of the afternoon with many hours of daylight left. I'd heard stories of dogs going missing here, but I figured they just ran off and never found their owners, as it is a large area. However, I found evidence to suggest otherwise. I came across a small black fur. At first, I thought it was a local's farm sheep that had strayed and perhaps caught its wool on the brush. And as I got closer, I realized it was fur and not wool. A little further up the trail, I found some more, a lot more. A full Labrador's coat of black fur. There were a few bones licked clean. Some had been splintered as if bitten with great force. I started to get the feeling that I was being watched. That's when I heard a loud wood on wood knock. I shot to an upright stance and stared intently in the direction from which it came, but I saw nothing. After my previous encounter several months earlier, I wanted nothing to do with this. I turned back into the frightened little girl again. I spun around and hightailed it back down the trail and broke from the tree line faster than I knew I could. "Lily! Hush! Lily! Quit barking! Lily!" Oh my gosh, this dog. It's my little pug. She won't shut up. She barks at everything. I'm sorry to interrupt this story. I spun around and hightailed it back down the trail and broke from the tree line faster than I knew I could. I've told no one about these two encounters until now. Neither Scott nor Jack have spoken of it either. I didn't even tell them about the second encounter, nor have I had another encounter or seen any signs of it since. In my mind, there's nothing that is going to tell me otherwise, although I thought Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and Yeti lived in North America and Russia. I know now that they are on UK soil as well. Bigfoot lives in my town, discreetly and quietly, without being seen or heard by the majority of people. I hope to God that it stays that way. And he signs off, Jay. I love these stories from the UK. These guys are so passionate about what they see and what they experience in the woods. And I know there are decent patches of woods all over those islands. And, you know, if there's a creature like Bigfoot, if it does exist, it probably exists everywhere. I don't know. Every species doesn't exist on every continent, but lions used to live here. We had lions in North America during the Pleistocene era and before. We had camels, we had horses, not like the horses we have now. And the horses disappeared for thousands of years, and then the Spanish brought them back, and they thrived here because this is their natural habitat. So species all over the world, on every continent, maybe except Antarctica, could be a great possibility. And I'm sure there are species out there of all kinds of animals that live everywhere. So, Jay, thank you for this story. I love these stories from the UK. I really appreciate you. Saturday morning, first thing I did this morning was take a shower with my Hippie #1 from Yeti Bar soaps. It's my favorite style of soap. I bathed and I got out and I feel clean. And today I'm going to spend most of the day cutting up wood and mowing grass. I'm going to get sweaty and nasty, but I guarantee you by the end of the day, the Hippie #1 scent will still be on me. I won't stink. And when I come in, my wife won't say, "Oh, you stink. Go take a shower." Although I will take a shower because I'll be dirty. Yeti Bar Soaps is an unbelievable product, and they have a great sale going on right now for the Hippie #1. They're selling it right now as overstock at an unbelievable price. You need to check them out at yetibars.net. Stock up on Hippie #1 soap. Take a look at Yeti Bar Soap. Take advantage of this big sale going on. And at the end, when you check out, use the code DC10 to get an additional 10% off. Yetibars.net and Yeti Bars on Facebook. They would love to hear from you. Go check them out. How about another story from the UK? This email is from Jim. Here's what Jim writes. My name is Jim and I live in Devon in the UK. This story is 100% true. I feel like I have to say that because if I wasn't there and been the one to experience this encounter, I would not have believed it myself. When I first moved to Devon about 5 years ago, I had a seriously strange encounter. For the record, I'm a no bullcrap spit on the floor kind of guy. I'm from London, where we say it as we see it. I've never told anyone about this. You think you guys over the water get ripped for seeing stuff? Try being over here, where most will just call you a Looney Tune. We are a nation that prides itself on our rationality, the old stiff upper lip, and all that malarkey. It may sound stereotypical, but that's just us across the pond. This is the odd thing. I know we have our fair share of weirdness in the United Kingdom, but this really took the biscuit, so to speak. I was camping out on Dartmoor National Park. We have a couple of cryptids around here like alien big cats, hellhounds, sea monsters, and some really spooky ghostly stuff as well. As a guy who's loved this stuff from a year dot, I want to say I'm not one of those gung-ho types, but I thought I'm going to see if what they say is true. It was a quite pleasant end of a September day when I went out over there. I'm a curious little fella who is also an ex-Special Forces, so I kind of know what I'm doing. So if I can, why not? Dartmoor is a funny place to go hiking in. You need 2 sets of clothes even in the summer. The terrain changes rapidly and so does the temperature. That is to say, if you go to the top of the tors in the summer, you'll be wearing winter clothing. But I digress. I wound up in Whitman's Forest. This is one weird place. The trees grow at angles and rocks have moss on them. It's a real Lord of the Rings kind of place. Some of the locals claims it was a Druid holy site. I thought if I wanted to see an ABC, that would be the place to tuck myself out of sight. So I found a lovely spot where all this stuff's about. I built my camp, and then I went and put some trail cams about. After that came the long wait. I sat there by a roaring fire and watched a really beautiful sunset. If only it had stayed that mellow the rest of the night. By midnight, I was ready to go hunting, as it were. I was hoping at least to get a cast of a footprint, but as you know, in our game, it can be a long wait even for that much. I ventured further to Dartmoor. It's quite a big forest for England, but it opens up to more lands. I was over there for about an hour, and suddenly I couldn't shake this feeling that I was being watched. The hackles on my back of my neck started to prick up, and now every instinct I had learned or have naturally, suffice it to say that my spider senses were tingling. Straight away, I went to the relative safety of my camp. Knowing there were other indigenous animals in that place, I already set up my alerts. I sat down and was having a couple of beers, trying to chill out, but I couldn't shake that feeling of being watched, tracked, or stalked. It had to be one of those, because I was at least 2 miles from my camp when the feeling started, and I still had it back at... I was at least 2 miles from my camp when that feeling started, and when I got back to camp, the feeling was still there. I was getting pretty freaked out by now, and my mind was going 20 directions at once. Was it kids on wind-up? Nah, why would they be here? A ranger? Again, no, they don't go there, full stop. Then I thought, it's a serial killer. They could dump your body over there and you'd never be found. Or it could be Satanists maybe, or pagans. At some point in its history, Dartmoor Forest was a sacred grove. That's when I heard the first twig snap. I immediately picked up my billhook. A billhook is a machete with a curve at the top. I also had my pocket knife in my other hand, and then I saw a set of glittering eyes in the light of the night. I announced my presence, and I said, "I can see you there. Come out where I can see you." All I got in reply was a low kind of whistle. I gathered that whatever was looking at me was definitely not a human. The eyes alone told me that. I've lived with a few different indigenous peoples around the world. I felt this relative to my experience. In a stern voice, I said, "I'm not here to do anyone or anything any harm. I'm merely passing through. You're welcome to come share my fire if you come in peace." And this is something I learned in the Congo in Africa. In other words, if you want what I've got, come to me and get it. I still had my blades drawn. I sat down by my fire, my blades on my lap, and that's when it stood to its full height. I uttered a pretty nasty expletive as I thought, "You're a big one, ain't you?" My trainee kicked in and I was working out his size and how long he could go. And then this thing strode across my campsite. I saw it with my own eyes. He or she was 7 feet tall and built like a brick blank blank. Well, you get the idea, mate. It was covered in long shaggy hair like an orangutan, except it didn't walk on its knuckles like most apes do, and there was an intense smell to it as well. I sat there with my blades on my lap, making no movement at all. In fact, I pretended not to be paying attention to it. I really couldn't tell what sex it was, and in less than a minute he or she walked through my camp. With that, I felt the animosity from earlier disappear. The rest of the night was perfect. I actually think it had come to work out what my intentions were in the forest. I never believed in the woodwoes, that's what we call them in medieval times. But when I hear stuff like your wickedly awesome channel, I have to wonder. Besides, I know what I saw. It seemed in action, indeed not so aggressive or isolated as Bigfoot are over in the States, or as elusive as the Australian yowie. Although I think they scent tag an area like most primates do, other than us. I only say this because the smell lingered. It was still reeking when I left. Well, that's my tale. Please, if you could, be so bold as to give your opinion on this. I'm a bit stumped, mate. Cheers, Jim. Well, Jim, I don't have an opinion, dude. That was your story. I'm sorry, I called you dude. Mate. I have to learn to call people in other countries what they're accustomed to being called to, mate. Anyway, I don't have an opinion, but it's an unbelievable story. I think you're asking my opinion because maybe you have the idea that I know a lot about these things, and I don't. Somebody asked me the other day, said, what all do you know about Bigfoot? And I said, I don't know much about them. Never seen one, never seen a track. I don't know anything at all about them. And I'm not going to pretend like I do, like some people do. And to be honest, I'm a little curious, but I'm not really eat up with knowing a lot about Bigfoot. To answer your question, I don't think I have an opinion, although I will say based on the stories that I have narrated up until now and read so far, I think it's quite unusual for one of these things to walk right through your camp. I don't think I've narrated a story like that, but I have heard 2 stories like that from people who are, let's just say, big storytellers in the Bigfoot world. Actually, they told me the stories face to face. I was with them. They were telling me and a whole bunch of people around a campfire, and they're great stories, and I don't really doubt them. I don't doubt them because other people saw it too. So it does happen. I think it's quite rare for one of these creatures to just walk right through your camp. But what an experience. I mean, my takeaway from that would be I got to see something that very, very, very few people see in this world. That's what I think when I'm standing in waist-high water in the middle of the winter in a swamp, hunting over a spread of decoys, and I get to see ducks. A lot of times when the ducks come in, I won't even shoot because I'm seeing something that so few people in the world ever get to see. And it is an honor and a privilege to be able to be healthy enough to get there, to be able to own the equipment to get there, and to be able to stay there on really cold, icy mornings and watch that kind of thing happen. There are so many things that go on in the woods that if you just go and you be quiet and you just observe, just kind of meld into the woods, you get to see things that 99%, I don't know, I'm guessing 99% of the entire population never get to see. They may get to see it on video. You might get to see animals doing their mating ritual. You might get to see animals fighting. You might get to see, like I said a minute ago, ducks coming in a opening in the middle of a swamp, in the middle of a cypress swamp. Watching them light on the ground right in the middle of your decoys, watching wood ducks shoot past you in the morning when they're leaving their roost. There's so many things you get to see if you just go there and be quiet with no ill intention, sit back and watch. And, 99 times out of 100, you may not see anything. They know you're there. Everything knows you're there. But to just sit there and observe, I mean, heck, just watch the bugs. I like to go back and sit in a lawn chair by this pond behind my house and just watch the bugs flitter on top and watch the fish take them off the top of the water. I mean, not many people really think about that. Not many people get to see that. Like this little bird, I hope this bird survives, and I'm going to get to see a bird go from just a day old. This little bird is no more than a day or 2 old. If it survives, I'll get to watch it grow from just being hatched, hopefully to a bird that'll fly off and go into the wild and be wild. And it would just be awesome to do that. Now, I don't hold out much hope of that, but if I'm patient and I'm persistent with this bird, it might happen. I'm a 60-year-old man. I'm pushing 60, and this stuff still thrills me. This nature thing thrills me. Okay, I know I've talked longer than the story was, but I'm real adamant about it. A lot of people get to see videos. Go see it for yourself. Go see the things in nature for yourself. All right, that's all I'm going to say. I appreciate you guys watching the video. It's been really fun putting these 2 stories together from the United Kingdom. I would love to sit over there in a pub and drink all night with these guys and just listen to their accent and listen to them talk. And like in this story, you get all kind of phrases and terms that I don't really understand, but people from the UK will know exactly what he's saying. and just listen to these guys talk. I mean, I would love to do the same in Australia and anywhere in Europe. Just sit in a pub all night and sit back and just watch. Just watch what goes on in another country. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to shut up, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks.